Hello everyone. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the types of research questions we form in health sciences research, and some features in PubMed that may help you find literature related to those questions. So in this particular video, I'm going to assume the people watching it don't have a strong background in health sciences, so I'm going to talk first about the types of research questions you can expect from people who are interested in health research, and then I'll get into the features in PubMed that can help you with that. So in health research, we have background and foreground questions. So background questions are quite broad questions that kind of think about what a population may look like, how you can assess that patient population, um, and so on. A foreground question is more specific, that arises based on a clinical situation. So the most common example is that someone may have a client or a patient and they're trying to figure out the best treatment or intervention for them. So to get a little deeper into these questions, here are some background questions. So there are questions that deal with the presentation of the problem. So what exactly does a particular disorder or illness look like? Another background question surrounds clinical assessments. And when we say assessment in the health sense, we're trying to figure out the best way to gather information about a client and their concerns or difficulties. The other assessment question might be, how do you interpret a particular assessment in order to figure out what's happening with a client? Yet another background question is etiology, which means the cause of a problem. So how does a particular condition arise? The last background question we might think about is prognosis. And what this means is what is the most likely clinical course for a client over time? What might we expect to see from a client who has a particular condition or disability? Foreground questions. So there are really kind of three foreground questions that surround intervention. One is a therapy question. So basically you have a client, they have some kind of issue. How do we best treat that? How do we best address that? Another foreground question is, how do we prevent a particular condition? So very often public health people are interested in this. And finally, there are questions that kind of surround the client experience and the meaning of that experience to them. So very often this is qualitative research that reaches out to a client to really figure out their experience of illness or disability. So that is your crash course in the types of research questions you might expect to get from students or faculty. And now let's go into some tools in PubMed that can help you with that. So of course you can do keyword searching, and for each one of these questions there is a particular research methodology that's best for answering them. Hopefully the person you're working with would know what that methodology is, and if they do, you may be able to limit to that in PubMed by looking on the left hand side. There are filters that can help you with that. But the faster thing to do is go to the clinical queries, and you can enter in some search terms here. So I'm going to keep it pretty simple just as an example. So say I'm working with someone who's interested in knee pain. From here you have several things that come up. So I'm going to skip the medical genetics one. That's fairly specific and kind of obvious. So if they're interested in genetics, there you go. In the middle you have systematic reviews come up. So these are essentially reviews of the literature. It's just like a literature review, except the methodology is incredibly rigorous. So the point here is that someone has generated a research question. Very often it's an intervention or therapy type question, and they'd have to dig up all the research related to that question and then sum it up, and it has to be done in such a way that someone else can replicate this search. So if you can find a systematic review on your topic, that is fantastic, a really good starting point. And finally, there are these clinical study categories. So these are predefined filters that will help you if your questions fall into these categories. So you will recognize probably 4 of these from my little crash course I just talked about. So etiology, diagnosis, which really is used more in the medical sense, although you may have some allied health people interested in diagnosis when they're trying to figure out or trying to distinguish between what a client has. So sometimes different conditions have very similar symptoms. So I'll get into that. Therapy is very common. So again, this is when someone's trying to find the best treatment, in this case for knee pain. And prognosis. So in this question, if someone has knee pain, what can we expect in their future? And in this case, knee pain is a symptom, it's not the condition. So to really get the most out of this prognosis category, I would want to know the diagnosis of this patient. What is causing their knee pain? Is there a specific cause? And I would probably search for that and then apply the prognosis filter. So those are the 4 I'm going to hit on. We won't get into clinical prediction guides. But what you do is just choose one of these filters. You can change the scope to a broad or narrow filter. And take a look at the results there. So this is a very broad search, so I got a lot of results. So in reality, I would want to make a more specific search than this. So that's clinical queries. The other thing you can do to limit your search in PubMed, and let me go back to the home screen, is that there are also topic-specific queries. So I'm going to click on that, and they hit on clinical queries again. But if you keep scrolling down, you'll see there are subject-specific searches we can run in PubMed that will limit to our search to a very specific category. So if you meet someone who's doing research in any of these categories here, then you can use that particular set. So I would encourage you to take a look at them and just get familiar with the ones that are available, because there aren't that many. But if there is one related to the topic your student or faculty member is interested in, they can be very helpful. So that is a little crash course in using clinical queries and topic-specific queries. As you can see, it's pretty simple. And I hope it helps you out. So if someone presents a research question to you, really think about if it falls into one of those categories. If you're not sure, definitely ask the person you're talking to. I'm sure they'd be happy to double check. And that can give you a jump start in your search. Hope that helps, and have a wonderful day. Bye.